nervous system is divided into glial cells, which are supporting tissue, and the full term up here, as you can see, is neuroglia. The word literally means nerve glue. These are the cells that kind of support and hold up and provide extra help here for the main cells of the central nervous system, or of the entire nervous system. Those would be the neurons. One of these are called astrocytes because they look like stars. Astrocytes are the most abundant, and they're star-shaped, and their functions are going to include some very important functions here. They are going to brace and anchor the neurons to their supporting blood vessels. Like you see right here in my upper picture here, the diagram, here's the neuron shown here in yellow. And an astrocyte is going to form like a bridge between the capillaries and the nerves. Now, the astrocyte is going to be essentially a barrier because the cell membrane is relatively impermeable. So it's going to keep bad stuff out of the neurons because the neurons, they are amitotic. Again, remember, amitotic means no mitosis, so they cannot reproduce themselves. Glial cells can, however. All right, so these guys are expendable, and basically by taking out many of the harmful substances and maintaining a stable environment, the neurons are able to better do their job. So again, controlling the environment. And in the actual diagram here, here's an example of a astrocyte right down here. Type of nervous supporting tissues here are the microglia. Microglia are basically spiral-like phagocytes. So being phagocytes, and remember the phagocyte is an eating cell, these phagocytes are going to actually dispose of any kind of debris, any kind of junk laying around outside of the cell. Again, helping to control the internal environment. You also have epididymal cells. Now, epididymal cells are pretty specialized. They're going to line the cavities of the brain and spinal cord, and there are some openings inside the brain and spinal cord, and that's where you're going to find these epididymal cells. They have a special feature. They have cilia on their surface. So like we talked before with cilia, function of cilia is to either move a cell or move a fluid. In this case, the epididymal cells beat back and forth and circulate the cerebral spinal fluid throughout the system. Then you also have special cells called oligodendrocytes. Now, these preceding cells that I've been talking about so far are basically glial cells found within the central nervous system. So again, remember, that's going to be brain, spinal cord. Oligodendrocytes have basically a twin in the peripheral nervous system, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. This main job here is to produce a substance called myelin. It's going to actually make a little covering called a myelin sheath around the nerve fibers in the central nervous system. And as you see up here, here's the oligodendrocyte. And one oligodendrocyte is going to produce a little myelin sheath, a little fatty covering around several nerve fibers. Cells were all found in the central nervous system. These two cells we're going to talk about on this slide are found in the peripheral nervous system. One are the satellite cells. They get their name satellite because they look like little tiny moons. In my diagram here, you see the satellite cells surrounding the neuron right here. They surround the cell body in the ganglia, and again, their function outside, this is outside the central nervous system. Their job is to help control the environment around the neurons. In other words, keeping them relatively safe. And then we have the Schwann cells. Schwann cells are individual little cells similar in function to the oligodendrocytes you just saw on the last slide. Schwann cells also make a myelin sheath, like you see in my diagram down here, but what you've got here is something a little different. Each Schwann cell, like here's a Schwann cell, forms a myelin sheath around just this little segment, and this one right here would be another Schwann cell. So each one of these little coverings right here are produced by a single Schwann cell instead of like you see in the central nervous system, one oligodendrocyte making many myelin sheaths. One Schwann cell makes one part of a myelin sheath.